everyone, welcome to another English Solutions for Business and Life video, Full Blast Level A1.2, Module 2, Exploring. Today we will be looking at past simple for regular verbs, irregular verbs in page 122, and the verb to be. We will also look at the verb could, adverbs of manner, the verb used to, personal pronouns. So let's start. Past simple. We use past simple to or for actions that started and were completed at a specific time in the past, habitual or repeated actions in the past, and completed actions that happens one after the other in the past. And how do we conjugate them? Well, let's look at these rules. First, most of the verbs will add ed at the end. For example, play becomes played. Verbs that end in e will have an d at the end added. So dance will become danced. Also, verbs that end in a consonant followed by a y will turn into ied, which means they will drop the y at the end. So for example, try becomes tried. Verbs that have one syllable that ends in a consonant will double that consonant and add a ed at the end. For example, stop, which is one syllable, will become into stopped. So you see, the consonant is repeated. Now, verbs that have two or more syllables and whose last syllable is stressed and ends with a consonant, like this, will double that consonant and also add an ed at the end. For example, prefer, prefer. The last consonant or the last syllable is stressed and it ends with a consonant. So, the consonant R is repeated and ed is added at the end, except for verbs like happen, which will only have one consonant and add an ed at the end, like happened. Let's look at some examples. Explore. We explored that cave. Travel. On summer, they traveled abroad. Go. This is a special case because go is an irregular verb. You can see a full list of irregular verbs in page 122 of your Full Blast book. In the case of go, for example, last week I went. Go turns into went. I went on a trip. Last week I went on a trip. Now let's look at the past simple for the verb to be. The positive form will have two conjugations, was and where. Was is used for singular nouns and where is used for plural nouns. The negative form will add a not at the end, and the not can be shortened by an apostrophe. Was not can turn into wasn't, and were not can turn into weren't. Also, the question form. As we saw last video, the verb is placed at the beginning. Was for example, and will be followed by the rest of the sentence. They can be answered with yes or no. Yes, I was, or the subject that is answered. Or no, somebody, the subject, wasn't or weren't. Where can also be used. Yes, we were, or no, they weren't. Let's look at some examples where we can use this. My vacations were amazing. My vacations were fantastic. They were exciting. They were cool. As you can see, all these are explaining the past and state of vacations. My vacations, which were before, were all these adjectives. Now let's use it for today. We can say that today was a horrible day, was an interesting day. Now let's look at the verb could. Could. Well, it's the past tense of can, and we use it to talk about an ability in the past. For example, I could walk. Before, in the past, I couldn't. She couldn't write. Could you talk? Meaning, were you able to talk? Now let's look at adverbs of manner. Well, adverbs of manner describe how something happens. Let's look at some rules. For example, most adverbs of manner are formed by adding ly to the adjective. For example, careful will turn into carefully. Verbs that end in y will drop the y, and instead it will be replaced by ily. For example, easy will turn into easily. Those verbs that end with le will drop the e, and y will be added at the end. For example, terrible will only drop the e, and it will turn into terribly. There are some irregular adverbs of manner. For example, good will turn into well. Fast will stay as fast. Hard will stay as hard. Late will stay as late. And early will stay as early. They are irregular because they do not follow the rules that were mentioned earlier. Now let's look at the verb used to. The positive form of the verb used to. Well, used to, we use used to talk about something that happened regularly in the past, but it no longer happens. The positive form will be used to, and the negative form would be didn't used to. The question form of this verb would use the auxiliary verb to do, did, and a space for the subject, used to, and the rest of the sentence or question. For example, when I was little, I used to go hiking, because I no longer do. Sit in the sun, because I no longer have the time. Or play video games. When I was little, I didn't used to study a lot or play musical instruments. Now let's look at personal pronouns. There are the subject personal pronouns and the object personal pronouns. The subject personal pronouns are used as subjects right before the verb. The object personal pronouns are used as after verbs as objects or after prepositions. So if we look at the subject personal pronouns, they will be I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. If we look at the object personal pronouns, they will be me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. Now let's look at the vocabulary for this module. We looked at transportation, ferry, van, motorcycle, helicopter, subway, and streetcar. We also looked at the points on the compass during this module. The N stands for north. The E stands for east. The S stands for south. And the W stands for west. That's it for this video. We hope you enjoy it. And thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.